Welcome to Bunkertown. On this week's show, we discuss the Charles Schwab Challenge, including Emiliano Grillo's first win since 2015, Michael Block crashing back to reality, and Scottie Scheffler finding himself yet again near the top of the leaderboard. We then welcome Mark Baldwin to the show to talk about his career chasing the dream of playing on the PGA Tour and what his future has in store. Then we get into the Memorial Tournament, where we give our picks and preview. Finally, we'll close things off with some listener questions and our Bogeyed plays of the week. I'm joined this week by Reid and Stark, as Nolan wasn't able to make it in for this one. Let's get into it.
Oh boy, look where he's hit it. This is serious.
This is hard to watch.
You know, building sandcastles in the sand.
What happens is you have this sense of embarrassment.
That's a shank. He decided to re-tee. That's a shank. Oh, man.
But I'm surprised he mishit it that badly. Wow.
All right, fellas, what a great week it turned out to be in Texas. While we may not have had the biggest names at the top of the leaderboard outside of Scottie, we did have some wild drama. Let's just start with what happened to Emiliano Grillo, the eventual champion at the 18th hole. He had a 2-shot lead coming to the 72nd hole, and his ball somehow found a creek. It didn't stop moving for like 5 minutes. Eventually, they placed it down. He'd go on to make double and then came through in a playoff. Reid, you were out on tour for a while. Have you ever seen something like this?
No, I've seen meltdowns. I've never seen a ball not stop moving for 5 minutes. So, that was a first. I don't know if I've ever seen, I've seen like a ball on the edge of the cup that looks like it's going to wobble for 30 seconds, or I've seen, a ball trickle down a long slope in the fairway for a little while when the grass is mowed tight, but I've never seen a ball like that just trickle and trickle and trickle and trickle. And finally, that finish reminded me a lot of the PGA Championship of last year when Pereira butchered up the 18th hole. It just kind of looked the same way. It just looked choppy, It looked like you're barely getting in, and then, obviously, Emiliano pulled it out in the playoff. But good player, has a history of being a very good ball striker. That kind of golf course is right up his alley. You don't need to be crazy long there. Just a good ball striker, make some smart decisions, make a few putts. That 18th hole, or I guess I should say 72nd hole, was quite interesting.
Yeah, are we officially calling that a river or a creek? I don't even know if we can consider it that much water. It was just like a little drainage patch where some water was trickling downhill.
Yeah.
Didn't look like it rained that week, so I don't know where that water's coming from. But yeah, once they saw it was in there, you got to give the broadcast credit. They were following it all the way down. They were very clear, though, that there was no way he could hit the ball. Originally, they were like, oh, maybe he could hit it. Technically, he could hit it while it was still moving, but the rules guy came in and was like, no chance. It's already deemed his time is up. It's in the water. He's got to take a drop from his last entrance. So they were very clear on that. But you had Grillo. Add in our buddy Harry Hall as well, who he had a tough 72nd hole, putting it in the water. He was a guy that wasn't really bombing it all day or all week, I should say. Had those first 2 rounds of 62, 66, was looking good, but blew up on the weekend with a 72 and 73. He wasn't hitting the ball far. He was being conservative. And then all of a sudden, on the very last hole, when all he needs to do is par it, he hooks a drive all the way around into water where I don't think anyone had hit it in that water yet for the entire week. Cost him. So you're right, Reid. It gets down to the 72nd hole, and it's names that aren't always at the top of the leaderboard, and anything can happen. And that's what makes these other events that don't have the sparkling names at the top of the leaderboard so interesting, because you never know how it's going to end.
Stark, you said it best. The guys who haven't been there over and over again, you never know how it's going to end. Look at the Players' Championship with guys that coming down to 17, over the years of people making 8s and 9s and 7s and 6s and whatnot on 17. And it's, I know it's an island green, but it's a 130-yard wedge shot. Yeah, it's a lot harder because it's surrounded by water, but it's still a basic wedge shot. So you go back to Colonial again, it's the same thing. Putting yourself in those positions more and more and more and more you can, the more comfortable you'll get and the easier it'll get, right? But Stark, I do want to say one thing here. Stark, your headphones. We're wearing your kids' gamer headphones tonight. You want to tell?
Yep.
You want to tell the quick blip on that real quick?
Yeah, the quick blip is we were about to jump on the pod. My headphones are in my kid's backpack. He needed them for school, like my regular ones. And he's not here. So I grabbed the next closest thing, Nintendo Switch. Shout out to them. Feel free to sponsor the pod if you want, Nintendo. But yeah, I put them on. They work great. It looked great, sound great, and I'll probably jump on after and play a few rounds of PGA 2K after this. So
You look like the guy who gets on with the headphones, just starts swearing at people profusely, playing Halo or Call of Duty.
yelling at 12-year-olds.
Yeah, so we're sorry for that if you get on, you're playing COD and you get a nice Toronto man just screaming at you. But Harry Hall, we're going to, a little teaser. He's going to be part of my Bogeyed of the week when we get to it.
But you know what? If you look at the leaderboard, similar to what we were just talking about with Reid, about how, if you're not used to playing in these last few groups of a tournament, it might blow up to you. You look at the guys, Grillo finished with a 68, and that won him because he finished under par. Shank, he was 72, 2 over. Hall, 3 over. And the only other one that was under par was Scottie Scheffler with a 67. And let's be honest, if Scottie just made a couple better shots and sunk a couple putts, he would have won this tournament easily. He could have shot a 65 or 64 and won the tournament, but things just weren't going his way on Sunday.
Yeah, it's got to be the worst feeling in the world, though, for Hall. He had a 4-shot lead at one point. You just got to keep it together, and to blow it up towards the end, that's got to be brutal.
I mean, blowing a lead at any point's brutal, but when it's on the final hole, or anywhere, anytime in any tournament on the back nine, or even in the final round, dude, that sucks.
Let me ask you this, because I was thinking about it because they brought it up on the broadcast a couple times that Hall and Shank, who were in the final group, might not have known what was going on ahead of them, whether it was Scheffler, Grillo, whoever. And they said, you know what? It's not until they get to the 18th fairway, I think, that they could walk up towards the green and see the leaderboard. Reid, in your experience as a caddy, a player, all that, are people in the stands saying things to the players, saying things to the caddies to let them know where they stand on the leaderboard? Like, hey, you got the lead by 1 here with only 2 holes to play. I know it's not technically allowed, but I mean, a drunk guy in the stands can yell out anything.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. And obviously, anything will from anyone from outside the ropes will say anything. It's not hard to figure out typically. Now, if there's 7 guys tied at the top, it's a little harder because, obviously you're have a lot more things to pay attention to. But when I was caddying out there, I tried to keep our mind and our talk away from that. If we needed to know where we're at, I would find out. I would figure it out. So if we need to play a hole a certain way to be more aggressive, or we had no shot of getting to 5th, but we were kind of locked in 7, so we just played the final hole a certain way, or whatever. But yeah, I mean, you hear comments. I mean, it's random from fans, and I think a lot of the players and caddies tend to block it out personally.
Well, Hall maybe would have played the 72nd hole a little bit differently if he had known.
Yeah,
maybe he doesn't hit the driver, or maybe he doesn't try to hit the driver as far as he had to, just to get it in the fairway and give yourself on the green with a shot at a birdie putt, eventually a par putt, and he's in the playoff at least.
You're trying not to put in someone else's hands, right? And so you're trying to basically look at the hole and say, how can I get this in the hole as quickly as possible, as efficient as possible, but also bring in less risk. And I mean, maybe there's something in his game plan where he thought driver was a wider landing area, or where the pin was, it was easier to attack to it. It could have been anything of that nature. Maybe where the wind was, he just wasn't, the ball flight that hits, has with driver was perfect with the wind, or, there's all sorts of circumstances, things they could have been talking about. But I mean, making a decision and the right decisions are definitely key in those moments.
One guy, though, who didn't collapse at the end, his putting was just kind of off all week, Scottie Scheffler, and then like the dominant player he is, he just aces, has a hole-in-one on Sunday, finishes tied for third. The guy putted terribly all week, comes tied for third. It's now his 13th straight top 12 finish, which is just insane to think of. I was talking about it before, how is this like one of the best stretches we've seen since maybe DJ a few years ago, Spieth in 2015. He's just been absolutely on fire.
Yeah, he's playing great golf. It's fun to watch. And you know, if he's somewhere in the top 20 going into the weekend, he's got a chance, right? He can go low 2 rounds and steal it. I thought it was great. He did the interview afterwards with Amanda Renner, and she kind of questioned his putting, or, you know, you're going through these putting struggles. And he stopped her like, struggles? Like, I'm the number 1 player in the world. And yeah, I missed a couple putts. I finished 2 shots back of winning this tournament. I've been in the mix in the last 6 or 7 tournaments, including majors. What are you talking about? I felt like he wanted to walk off the set while she asked that question. But really, that's the only thing that's holding him back. You know, a couple missed putts, a putting stroke that didn't follow through properly to get it in the hole on 1 or 2 holes that come to mind. And he wins that tournament. He possibly wins a couple others. I'm sure it's something he's working on. He knows his strengths. He knows his weaknesses. And he knows what he needs to improve to get ready for the U.S. Open in a few weeks, where he wants to win. So I'm not worried about Scottie Scheffler's putting. He hits the ball so well. He's always in the right spot. He's always going to be in contention, it feels like. So if it's a bad week of putting, not a big deal. I think he'll be right back at it the next time he tees it up.
I mean, let's look at the difference in. Let's say you lose by 2 shots over the course of 72 holes. The winner probably is going to make a bomb or 2 at some point. It's just going to happen. 34, unless you're stuffing it all week, you know what I mean? But at some point, they're going to make a bomb or 2. So basically, the difference in putting, now you have to dig more into the stats, but the difference in putting is a couple made bombs. So now we're literally twiddling it down to a couple made bombs. So if you're going to tell me, you know, whoever, Amanda Renner or whoever, is going to tell me you're not putting well because you didn't make a couple bombs to win the golf tournament, you know what I mean? Like, piss off.
Agreed.
Scheffler didn't make a putt over 6 feet on Saturday and came third. That's crazy. That's dominance.
Yeah, I didn't make a putt over 6 feet on Sunday either, so.
Also tied for third.
Zack, on the flip side of that, though, I mean, those guys are such good ball strikers that there's some days where, I'm not saying it happens Saturday, but where, let's say Scheffler might not make a putt outside of 6 feet all day, but he hit it inside 6 feet 6 times and made every one of them.
Nice life.
That's why people focus on that kind of stuff, but it's like, well, he did make a putt outside of 6 feet, but how many times did he hit it inside of 6 feet and make birdie? Or how many times was he, you know, tapping it in on a par 5 for a 2-putt birdie or whatever? I mean, golf just is the score at the end of the day. It doesn't matter how you get there.
Let's close this off with a discussion on one last player. Stark, I know you're off him, but I got back on the train. The block party, though, officially over.
Over.
I'm, though, all in on Block because I love that he's so delusional. So now, as a fan of Mr. Block, I'm just going to ride with him all the time. He just got brutally unlucky.
You heard it here first. Next week, you go to the Canadian Open, you'll see Zack watching Mr. Block play 18 holes. He'll be following him the whole time with his Block Party t-shirt on. Zack's bought in. I'm done with this guy. I told you guys last week this guy was driving me nuts, the way he was talking on the broadcast.
No, you're all off.
I don't want to say that I was happy to see him completely fall off and blow up. I know I saw it coming. I wish I had a mortgage payment on this guy missing the cut. I knew it was coming. He did over 30 podcasts from Monday to Wednesday. He was on every show except for Bunkertown for some reason. Yes. And I saw a list of it. It was everything from Good Morning America to Ripper Magoo podcast where he says he's better than Rory. He did everything. He was all over it.
He did not say better than Rory. He said if he could drive it as far as Rory, he'd be as good as Rory. We'll never know. We'll never know.
Here. Ridiculous. I actually heard him on a talk show in Toronto Toronto, and they said, oh yeah, I can't wait to see you come up to Canadian Open. If the Canadian Open was smart, they would put you and Rory for the first 2 rounds together to rekindle that magic from the PGA. Not anymore. Rory's going to say, I don't want that guy anywhere near me Thursday or Friday. He should be the first one to tee off Thursday morning in Toronto, because I'm done with this guy. He was shooting an 81. He's flubbing the ball all over the place, and then he's smiling for pictures with kids. I mean, come on, enough. The dream's over.
Stark, that's his game, though. He shot 81, but then he said it in his interview. He could shoot 58 and 59. That's his game.
Why would you say that?
50% he shoots 81, 50% chance he shoots 59. That's all he can ask for.
Oh my God.
Hey, I like those odds.
Exactly.
And then he's like, after he shoots the 81, he's tearing up in the press conference again. It was just like a ball of emotions where I was like, I don't want you. You're plus 11, and the telecast is showing you. I'm tuning in on a Thursday. I don't want to see this guy shoot from the bridge when he's plus 11. Get him off my TV. I don't want to see him at the Canadian Open.
He's going 59, 58 to open up his Canadian Open.
Stark, you're telling me that you're going to get a T-shirt with his face on and wear it out to Canadian Open and go follow him.
I'm going Friday, so he better have the early morning tee off and get him out of there on a plane out of Pearson quickly.
You're a hater. I was a hater like you once, Stark. I was a hater. I was all off on Block, but now all in.
All in.
This guy has the ultimate confidence. That's what you need, Stark, because you're never going to be upset, because it doesn't matter what he shoots one round. You know he got the 59 in the bag. He said it.
I need to figure out a bet with Stark where I can win it. So in the winning side of the bet is he has to send a letter to Mr. Block saying how great he is and the best thing in the world and yada yada. I need that in my life.
Reid, you'll probably end up playing him.
Reid, if you play him, I don't care where in the world, I will fly there just like Happy Gilmore. I will be that craze fan in the stands just yelling the entire time at him, hey, Block, you suck. Come on, Reid, let's go.
Shit.
All right. If you're a part of golf Twitter, you'll definitely know our next guest. He's been grinding his way from mini tours to the Corn Ferry Tour and all the way up to the PGA Tour, where we saw him at Pebble Beach back in February. I'd like to welcome Mark Baldwin to the show. How's it going, Mark?
It's going great, Zack. Thank you so much for having me. Reid and Stark, Soda, much appreciated.
Awesome. Yeah, we're super pumped to have you. I know everyone, we see you on Twitter. You're like one of the most active guys out there. Have you always been like this, or is it a new thing that you've decided just to connect with fans?
No, I've always been quite active on Twitter. I would say I'm actually a little bit less active than I've been in the past right now. We just have this wild little dude. He's 3 years old, and he's just taken up a lot of time when I'm home. So it's actually it's been a good break, but I do miss kind of getting back on there and mixing it up with some of my favorite personalities.
You've really improved your own personal brand and maybe in your golf, because you've obviously made some great connections through it. I know you've helped a bunch of foundations with our guy Ryan French, who's Monday Q on Twitter, and he's even been out caddying for you. So what's that all been like, that you've kind of become a Twitter celebrity in a way?
Twitter famous. I enjoy being on and interacting with a lot of people that I haven't spent enough time in recent years connecting with. I try to, it's so easy to go down the pathways that lead you to unhealthy habits on Twitter. And in the past, when I found myself doing that, exposure, right, to some of that stuff, I've kind of stepped away a little bit. But really, I'm trying to use it as much as possible for, Ryan French and Ryan has, of Monday Q Info, is off on his own now, and I'm trying to help and write for him. And I'm trying to use it for that purpose, for connecting and uplifting players that I see that are, also really interesting follows, have great stories, people that I really enjoy being around. And just use it to elevate voices in the game that, I think deserve a better platform.
Being in Phoenix, Mark, you probably get a lot of those insights to a lot of those younger players coming out and moving there to try to play and whatnot. How, I mean, do you come across those quite often, or I mean, how did you meet them personally, or do you hear about them? How does that usually go down?
I've just been in pro golf, I think, long enough now where I have a pretty decent rapport with many of the players. And especially, I mean, this year has been tough, right? So like mini tour golf, if you don't have status and you're playing mini tours, you're trying to find places to play, there's just not as many places as there used to be. So that's largely a result of the popularity of golf, which we're all excited about, has continued for the last couple of years, year over year. And it's more difficult to host events because the cost per player is higher. And so the margins get much smaller. So it just doesn't make a lot of sense to host mini tour events in these really popular destinations and locations. And Phoenix is certainly one of those that used to have a lot and now they don't. So it's been a little more difficult this year just because there haven't been as many tournaments. But we're coming off of a little stretch here where I played in the Scottsdale Open. The people at Good had this inaugural really cool event that I participated in, and that content is just coming out now, but I got to see a lot of players that I haven't run into so far this year. So yes, some of that interaction happens in those places, but unfortunately this year there just haven't been as many run-ins as there have been in the past.
Mark, I know you've got a great career in golf and you've kind of done it all, mini tours, Corn Ferry Tour, and even the PGA Tour. So someone that's seen those different levels of professional golf, what is it, in your opinion, that makes PGA Tour golfers a head above everyone else? What is it that the Corn Ferry guys don't have that the PGA Tour players have?
Yeah, I think, I don't know that there's like one thing. There are some absolute superstars that when they're on, they're just unbeatable. Like, Cameron Champ. I mean, that dude misses most of his cuts on the PGA Tour, but when he's on, good luck beating him because he's just so talented. He's just, an incredible presence and physical specimen. So you have players like that. You have players like, players that just minimize mistakes. They just, they don't make that many of them. And that's a winning formula on the PGA Tour, whereas it's not so much of a winning formula on the Corn Ferry Tour. The tour has gotten better over the past couple of years, I think, at going to courses that are more like closely simulatory to PGA Tour sites, but you just have to make so many birdies on a typical Corn Ferry site. So like you're hitting a lot of wedges, it's a lot of bomber, drivers off the tee. Like there are some sites where the rough is very penalizing, but there just aren't that many of them. So I think, you get players that like maybe squeak into the 25 or in the past have gotten through the 3 finals events and that's how they've gotten their card. And then they, maybe they do better on the PGA Tour and you didn't see them as regularly on Corn Ferry. So I think, because the PGA Tour is going to give you, I would say typically longer shots into the greens, require more precision. It's going to be more penalizing when you short side yourself. Like you're just not going to, the greens aren't going to be as soft. You're not going to be able to make saves the way you can on Corn Ferry Tour. So, I don't know that there's like one particular formula. It can be a combination of all of those things, but I think it just probably on the whole, it rewards better, the really top shots, and it punishes mediocre shots or doesn't give mediocre shots really much of a chance to advance up the leaderboard.
Yeah, and I know that this year they've changed the qualifications to get your PGA Tour card from the Corn Ferry Tour, no longer having the final championship. It's more just your regular season accumulative points. Do you like that? Do you like that it's more focused on how you do throughout the entire season? Is that something that you want? Or as a Corn Ferry Player Tour, would they want to have that chance at a championship at the end?
I think if you polled most players, they would say it's good that you reward players for their better play over the course of a season. But the flip side to that is if you've played well, but you haven't quite broken through, I think a lot of guys really liked the 3 finals events at the end of the year that gave everyone a shot. It was like, maybe you just squeaked into the top 75 and you had a couple of chances, but you just didn't quite figure out how to win. And then you figured out how to, play consistent golf or your best golf at the end of the year. I mean, my buddy Callum Tarrant, that's what he did. And he, in the last 2 majors, he's been, or maybe not 2 majors, but like the U.S. Open last year at the Country Club. And then you saw him, he was right at the very top of the leaderboard at the PGA Championship. And he's an incredibly solid player who really thrives in incredibly hard golf courses. So, I think everybody appreciated having those as like a kind of a restart, and you had those to look forward to. It's like the other thing too is it, like the net effect was you felt like you were playing for more PGA Tour cards, even though like there's 30 now, not 25 at that reward the over the course of the season play. But like, I think if you look at it, it's probably pretty similar. That's probably around 30 cards, but you felt like the opportunity was greater when you had finals events and you had the cards awarded at the end of the season. So I personally liked the old formula, but I'm not going to argue that, the new formula is in any way bad.
Now, going back to the old formula, I know that the 25 that were gained in the playoff events were weaker status than those gained in the regular season. So in that realm too, at least you're, not putting them at the same weight, or same level, I guess you could call it, as someone who's performed well all year. So, I think there is, some form of like for that for a lot of people. We'll see how it kind of plays out, but I was interested to see them go away from that.
You mentioned Callum Tarrant, and obviously he's playing incredible golf. We just saw him all the way at the top of the leaderboard. A guy you've competed with a ton. You've done well, and then we've seen you on the PGA Tour. If I'm not mistaken, the last 3 PGA Tour events, you've made the cut. And while you didn't have a crazy high finish or anything, you still made the cut. You're competing against the top guys in the world. Does that kind of frustrate you a bit, though, in a way where it's like, you could compete with these guys? It's just you're waiting for that breakthrough to make it up there for good?
Look, these events weren't elevated events, right? I mean, the Barracuda Championship holds a very special place. It'll be the 5th major until I die.
I love that.
And then AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am is a spectacular event, and it is, I think next year it will be an elevated event actually. But, in the last few years, they have struggled to really bring like the very best players in the world to the tournament. They get, if let's say 3 players out of the top 20 or something like that, year in, year out. So you don't have like the super marquee names going there, but the depth on the PGA Tour, I think those names are important. And like, if you talk about like a John Rahm, somebody, or Scottie Scheffler, like those guys, every time they tee it up, they're at the top of the leaderboard. Doesn't matter where they play, they just are. But the depth that's out there now makes it so that really anybody who's in the field, if they're playing decent, has a chance to win. Like decent, but like if they're playing well, like that, the depth is unparalleled, I think, in golf history. And so I do think that it is really encouraging for me. And obviously, like, these are feathers in my cap that I'm going to tell, hopefully I get another shot at it and I play better than I have in the past on Sundays. But if I don't, I have these experiences to tell my son about. So those have been very cool. And I think it goes back to like, I consider myself a really good mid iron player, long iron player. And I don't think I stack up as well with short irons and wedges relative to PGA Tour guys. So I think, that is possibly one explanation.
You should be very proud of what you've accomplished. It's amazing to play in those tournaments. Now, a famous golfer recently has said that if he had Rory's distance, he'd be a top 10 player in the world. I'm curious, Mark, if you could go drop your ball right beside where Rory teed it off from, would you be a top 10 player, you believe?
I would not, no. I would.
You didn't want to make headlines on the show? We're trying to sell the show here.
I would be probably ranked pretty similarly to where I am now.
On that note, obviously we're talking about Michael Block and his comments. Do you think that's a lot of players believe that the only difference between them and those, top 20 players in the world is distance? Or when you're out there and you're playing with these guys, you realize it's more than just driving the ball. There's all aspects of the game that come into play to win a PGA Tour event.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, Rory's obviously one of the most skilled drivers of the ball ever to play, and he hits it further, and he hits it very straight. But and that's like an incredible weapon. And if you took a guy like Steve Stricker and you put him you just let him drop where Rory plays from, would he still to this day be like one of the best players in the world? Yeah, he probably would be. So for some people, that's probably true. I'm not one of those people, but I do think like, the majority of players out on tour now really move the golf ball. Like I just think gone are the days, like nobody's hitting at 280 out there. You know what I mean? You may see 280 or 285 or something on the year-end stat sheets, but like that's measuring a lot of 2-irons, that's measuring a lot of 3-woods, right? Like almost nobody that I play with anymore, I'm like, whoa, that dude's short. Like Spencer Levine, okay? Last time I played with Spencer Levine, like a couple of years ago, I played with him on Corn Ferry Tour and I was hitting it, 40 by him. Last time I played with him, maybe like 15 by him. Like he's just figured out how to optimize his flight and his ball speed, and like got almost all the guys now move it significantly enough where there's not like a Walmart park between their golf ball and the longest player. It just doesn't happen much anymore.
Yeah, you talked about what these guys have to do to improve. Is there something in your game you've been working on to try and keep up with some of these guys out there?
Yeah, it's mostly short game and wedge play, short iron play, just being able to hit it in, kind of windows and work flights into different sections of greens based on, what the conditions are like. So, it's mainly that it's kind of maybe a double-edged sword. It's like guys who have I have a very long swing with a ton of width, and that helps me with speed, but it makes it harder to hit wedges. And I get out of sync, my arms get out away from my body a lot. I get steep with wedges, and that makes it hard to control the contact and, the position of the ball in the face at impact. And so it makes it less consistent. So those are things that I have to work on, but like, that's the rub a lot of the time, is if you hit the ball your strength is distance, that oftentimes the other side of your game may suffer because of the reasons that you thrive in distance.
Yeah, you say that perfectly, Mark. I play a lot of golf myself and hit the ball in decent ways, and I struggle with the exact same thing, man. I tend to get steep. But I think you find that with a lot of players who hit the ball a longer way. I think that, people are kind of trending towards, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the bigger players trend towards a little bit more of a cut. I mean, a lot of them draw it, but you see more cuts nowadays than you did 30 years ago, let's call it. I think that also has a tendency to draw a little bit of a steeper swing as well. So yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. What do you think, besides driving the golf ball, obviously we know putting is a big key out there. How important is being able to play in weather? I mean, everyone thinks about just teeing it up, hitting into the fairway, hitting it to 10 feet, making a putt and going on, but they don't see the fact that you're changing grasses 7 times in 8 weeks or whatever the number may be. And they don't realize how much different it plays. I mean, Bermuda to Bent is night and day, right? And so how good are those guys at that?
I think anybody that makes it out there can play across any surface in any condition, but there are players that do it better than others. Guys that grew up on Bermuda, especially hitting shots around the greens, like it's really hard to, I think the best chippers of the ball, the most versatile chippers, are players that came out of playing in Bermuda. like you just face shots off of every kind of possible lie, and you have to predict what it's going to do. You have a kind of a different technique based on the lie, based on the condition. All the very best pitchers and chippers I know came from somewhere in the South where they're playing off of, sandy, gnarly Bermuda surfaces. I'm out here in Phoenix, and like a lot of times the draw is that it's so nice and the weather is beautiful, and a lot of times you feel like you're playing in a dome, but you just get like this beautiful overseeded bent grass, and like it doesn't get very long, especially in season, and you can kind of convince yourself that your short game's good, and then you go to a tournament conditions and you realize you just haven't had to be versatile and face many different shots. You're just kind of like, one trick pony, and you're just hitting the same shot, and it's pretty easy off of a similar lie, regardless of what kind of shot you're trying to hit. So, on tour, you just face such a variety of shots. And I think the players that do it best, especially on the short game side, are like the Southerners. And then there's guys that come from overseas and play in Ireland and Scotland, and they kind of face some different conditions and some different surfaces that require a lot more ingenuity and precision. But yeah, I mean, I was just playing in the Reno Open, which offers an exemption to the Barracuda, and that's at significant elevation, and like if you're playing out west, a lot of times you're playing at elevation. And so if you're living out there, you can kind of get lulled into this idea like, yeah, I hit it 350 all the time or whatever. I can dial up a wedge 170 if I need to. And some guys are really good at playing at elevation. There's a lot of guesswork in it, and other people just absolutely despise it. So I think it's, a lot of it probably ties into where you played a lot of your golf growing up.
It's like those guys that say, I'm a scratch golfer, but they play 70 rounds a year at their one home course. It's like, well, when you go out and try to play a different course with different grasses and different angles, they can't even sniff even par. So very interesting thought.
Yeah, that's incredible insight. Definitely things people don't think about. I know Reid's brought up many times, like the different grasses and how things are in the south of Texas. And
big grass guy.
Huge.
Me and Stark were out here in Toronto, Canada. Like we play on whatever grass we get. Sometimes a little icy out here.
The farther west you go, like in California, you get all those guys that grew up in Southern California, putting on POA, and you hear so much like when you face afternoon POA with, 4 or 5 footers, it gets really gnarly and scary. And like, I don't think people who, probably haven't putted on that really kind of understand what that means. But the people who putt best always seem to be the people who grew up putting on that, and like their strokes are kind of tailored, and their launch patterns off the putter are kind of perfectly built for that. But that kind of stuff is really hard for everybody.
I would say PO is the most frustrating grass, because you can roll a putt late in the day and you see it bounce offline. You hit a flower bud on the ground or whatever and bounce offline. And it's like, damn it, nothing you can do about it. But I grew up playing in Seattle on Bent, man, Pier the Bent, and obviously that's my favorite.
Just get it online. Can't miss.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best way to see how good you guys are. All these people at home who think that they could just go out there and be professional golfers, you guys are figuring out the different greens, the different at elevation, all this crazy stuff. But one thing I wanted to touch on, I know it's less of a touchy subject now, obviously, all this live stuff that's been happening. So it seems that there's a big discrepancy between how the media views live and how the actual players view live. So what are your thoughts being out there? Do you think it's good for the game, maybe, that it's helped the PGA Tour? Do you hate all these live guys, or are you friends with any of them out there?
I mean, I know a couple of them. I wouldn't say I'm friends with them, but I don't think many players really have a problem with it. I would say most players, especially at my level, are just hoping for more opportunities, and they're hoping that they can make a living playing. Now, the frustration, I would say that most people, so that would be kind of like the introduction to the conversation. I think the frustration would be that live is a closed shop, that there's no way to get out there. Essentially, like, you have to go win on the Asian tour. Okay, no one's going to go do that. You know what I mean? So I think that's the major objection. It wouldn't be, maybe if you got really deep in the weeds on a moral argument late one night with some guys, they might bring it up. But like, for the majority of players are going to be like, look, I want a place to play. It's really hard to make a living if I don't have a PGA Tour card. I am all for more money in the game. It would be great if there weren't, nefarious connections to that money. But I just ultimately want to be able to play professional golf and earn a living at it. And then you get to the argument like, but for all the criticisms of the PGA Tour, it is still, even if you don't like the new structures, even if you don't like elevated events, it's still a meritocracy. There's still a way to move up. There's still, great golf is going to give you more opportunities. And that is not the case for LIV. It's still a closed shop. So I think that's kind of like the major objection that you'd see from most players.
Building on that, one thing I've thought about a ton, like I've always thought growing up, I played a lot of hockey, and it's like the dream was to make the NHL. And if when I was right on the cusp of making the NHL, some other league offered me the house to go play in their league, I don't know if I'd take it, because it's like to reach your dream. Do you have that kind of sense where I assume your dream, you want to play on the PGA Tour, you want that PGA Tour card? If LIV goes out and offers the boat, let's not say they're going to offer, but in a hypothetical world, would that kind of sting where it's like now your dream can't come true in a way?
Yes, Zach, we'd like to offer the man who finished T34 at the 2022 Barracuda Championship.
That's the fifth major, Mark. It's the fifth major.
It's true. It's true. It's easy to stand on your moral high horse when there's no offer on the table, right? And I have always wanted to play on the PGA Tour. I'm still working towards it. I think endured more as a professional golfer than most to try to get there. So there's a lot, that would be a significant conversation. I mean, we live in a 1,000 square foot apartment, and I would like to be able to send my 3-year-old to college. But I'd also like to explain to him, why his dad did the things he did and that they were for the right reasons. But I think, for the majority of golfers, of players, like we all want to play on the PGA Tour. I think that's still the highest end of the bar. Everybody, like everyone that I know that even is a supporter of LIV, that's a professional player, that's not where they want to go first. And I think it's largely because, like, we know the very best golf is played on the PGA Tour. I mean, the fields are just larger, they're deeper, the courses are better. That's going to be the case for, the foreseeable future. So I don't think that is changing in any way.
Well, Mark, you've actually got to play in the PGA. I'm so jealous of you that you've got to do that. Honestly, would be a dream of mine, to see my kids do it, like to think about your family and friends being able to watch you do it is amazing. So we'll get you out of here on this question. What's your best moment out on the PGA Tour? It could be a shot you made, or it could be something small, little detail that us don't know about because we're never in or around the PGA Tour. Give us some insight on one of your best moments out there.
Wow. I would say two things really stick out in my mind. One is the first Barracuda Championship. It was 2021, and coming down the last hole, Ryan French from Monday Q-Info was caddying for me. And I, hit, it's the 72nd hole, and I hit one down there. And I just put my arm around him as we were walking off the box and walking down the player's stripe. And I just told him how much it meant to me that he was there. And without him, I don't think I would have Monday qualified for that event. I was really kind of at like wit's end with the game leading into that Monday qualifier. I had been on a really bad streak, missed a lot of cuts in a row. I'd gone from, in that season, like in the top 50 early in the season, playing really well, to losing my card. And I was learning to be a parent during that time. And when I was at home, I felt guilty because I wasn't working on my game. When I was on the road, I felt guilty because I wasn't at home helping Sarah and Miles. And I just, put my arm around him and I just said, this was an incredible experience. I get to live my dream on the PGA Tour this week. And if it never happens again, I will always be able to say that I walked the fairways of the PGA Tour with a great friend. And so that was like deeply meaningful to me. And then the other one was, that jumps out is AT&T. We're the last group on the course on Pebble Beach. We're the last group on 18, the final day. Or no, sorry, the third day. Sun's setting. It's Peter Jacobsen's last tournament, and so it's his last trip around Pebble Beach. I've hit it down over the tree in the center of the fairway, down the right side of the fairway, and it is just a full-on party. I mean, it is like 4 deep all the way down, 8, the iconic storied hole 18 at Pebble Beach. The grandstands are full around the green, and it's my turn to hit. This is Peter's last hole, last trip around Pebble, and there's a concert going on just up behind the 18th green, and they're playing Sweet Caroline. And it's leading into the chorus, and everyone's looking at me like it's my turn to hit, and I'm just standing there, just waiting. And Ryan French, who's caddying for me, is like, "What are you waiting for?" I'm like, "I'm waiting for the chorus to drop." I gotta wait.
Bop, bop, bop.
Yeah, I can't stand over the ball when we're singing Sweet Caroline. And so I felt like it was me who, like, the world just stood still for a minute on the PGA Tour, and I had full control over when it started again. And then I hit a spectacular 2-iron onto the front edge of the green and 3-putted.
Oh,
That's incredible.
amazing.
Sweet Caroline provided you that nice 2-iron, didn't it?
For sure.
Yeah, you gave me some real goosebumps there though with that first story.
Yeah, for sure.
Just dreaming about that, like, that's crazy to me. You accomplish your dream. But Mark, we wanted to thank you so much on behalf of all of us for making the time to come on. Hopefully we'll have you on again soon. I know we're going to see you out on the PGA Tour, so pump for that. For everyone listening though, you can find him at Mark Baldwin 70 at Mark Baldwin 1 on Twitter, not 71. I don't know why I was thinking about that. But thanks a lot, Mark, and hopefully speak again soon.
Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much to Mark, talking some golf. Amazing stories there at the end. I'm sure we'll have him on again soon down the road. Now, though, it's time to look ahead to this week's tournament. It's Jack's event. It's an elevated event. It's the Memorial Tournament. We've seen numerous great finishes the last few years, and I wouldn't be surprised to see more of that this week. So let's get into a little course preview by the course's neighbor, Reid Martin.
Yeah, I would say let's, if I had to be exact, maybe 8.1 miles, maybe 8.3 miles. That would be my guess from door to entrance of Muirfield. Yeah, Memorial this week, always a good one. You know, you think about the Memorial and let me backtrack there. You think about the majors, right? And after the majors, you have the Players. And, I think shortly after the Players is the Memorial. You know, it always draws one of the best fields. It always is in good condition, always plays tough. You're going to get the best player that week to win. You're not going to get any flukes. It's a course that is in your face at all times. I mean, I've caddied the Memorial. If it gets firm, it can play real hard. And I know they've done some course renovations over the years, a little bit every year, changing it a little bit, changing some landing areas, changing some bunkering, taking out bunkers, putting in bunkers. But it's a course that has a lot of bunkers, a lot of big, deep bunkers, especially around the greens. Bunker shots where you're going to have to get it up high, stop it quick. So you're going to want someone with good hands. No one's going to go around 72 holes hitting 72 greens. It's just not going to happen. And if it did, I want to know how. But obviously bent grass. There's plenty of elevation change at Muirfield. Nothing crazy. A lot of 3, 4, 5 down, 3, 4, 5 up yards, that is. A lot of undulation around the greens, as I mentioned before. So leaving your ball in the correct spot, having good distance control with your irons is going to be prominent this week. Driving the golf ball is important here, but I think it's more of a second shot golf course personally. The fairways are good and they're guarded, but they also have a little bit of width to them. It's not like you're hitting it down hallways. And I think, the key to Memorial is staying away from the big numbers. It's so easy to make a 6, 7, or 8 out of the Memorial. I mean, let's look at the par 5, 6, or par 3, 16th. Over the years, it's created some moments. That hole, for instance, coming down the stretch, you gotta leave your ball in the right spot. If you're in the wrong spot on that green to the wrong pin, you're toast. 17, if you're in the wrong spot to a wrong pin, you're toast. 18, same thing. You get above the hole on 18, you're toast. So it's going to be someone who is, I mean, typically if you looked over the past years, someone who controls their irons very well. Someone who can flight the golf ball, take spin off, put spin on when they need to. But I mean, a good iron player and a good putter is key this week. I mean, good putters are key every week. Maybe not as key some weeks as others, but iron play, controlling your number and leaving it in the right spots and being able to have some course management. I think a good caddy this week is huge. It gives you kind of that upper edge on. There's a lot of information on this golf course. There's a lot of swales and a lot of different pockets where elevation is different and a lot of different types of pins where, honestly, off the green is sometimes better than putting from 40 feet left or right or whatever the hole, because you're pitching uphill or whatever it may be. But good caddy's gonna be huge this week, and I think you're going to get someone who's controlled their numbers with their irons and putted decently. So I like a ball flight that's a little more controlled this week, not too much out of control per se. Someone who kind of keeps the ball in front of them, just plots it along.
With it being an elevated event and some of the changes they made over the last few years, what do you see the number going to be? We just saw the Schwab -9, where maybe some people thought it was going to be double that, being a birdie fest possibly. With the Memorial, is this something you think they want to keep nice and low and they'll maybe tuck away a few pins and make it a little difficult on these players being an elevated event, or do you expect low numbers to win this one?
No, I would say 4 a day is probably about right. I mean, it can get, in years past, it's gotten really hot and really firm, and it plays really hard when it does that because there's so much slope, as I alluded to before, so much pitch around the greens. But you shoot 4 a day and you're going to be in the hunt. You're going to be, if you're not winning, you're going to be right there and have a look on Sunday. And the reason I think that is just because there is so much opportunity to make an easy bogey or double real quick. I mean, it's not hard out there. You hit it in the wrong bunker to the wrong pin, and you're just trying to make 5 or bogey or whatever, whatever par it is. But, you're just trying to hit it to 20 feet and give yourself a look. It's basically play smart golf. But I think that it's a golf course that can be one of the back 9. You have 2 par 5s that are gettable. 15 up the hill is a little tougher. But, you have 14 down the hill. I know it has, some water around it, but you're going to have a wedge in. 13 is, you're going to have a wedge in. 11, the par 5 is gettable. So there's a lot of opportunity on the back 9. Someone who closes is key. Someone who likes to make birdies coming in, because it can be done. Now you get to 17 and 18, they're 2 great finishing holes. Between the drives and the approaches, there's 4 very good shots. The drive on 17, you miss that fairway and you put it in the wrong spot, it's going to be real hard to make par. So, if you're watching live and you see some action at the top of the leaderboard, there's very well going to be some switcheroo.
4 under each round, so obviously 16 under. That would have won 10 of the last 11 years. The only exception, Patrick Cantlay, back in 2019 was 19 under. Scott was 17 under that year, so I don't know. They were on something then. Yeah, this course driving distance doesn't seem to be the biggest deal. Like Billy Horschel last year was 59th in driving distance, and it seems to a lot be greens and regulation, like you mentioned. Just put it to 20 feet and almost a putting contest, if that's fair to say.
Yeah, and the par 3s out there are really good. The par 3s out there, I think, thinking a little more about it, whoever wins is going to have a good par 3 scoring average. I mean, you look at the par 3s, a couple of them that come to my mind right away. You look at number 8, Great par 3, long skinny green, falls off on both sides. You miss your target, it's gonna be very tough up and down. You go to 12. 12 is very known for having the wind kind of swirl in there, so it's hard to pick up on the wind that's going on. You might walk to that hole and it feels into the wind on the tee, and you get to the green and it's blowing straight down. Obviously that's all over the water with the skinny green. You have the par 3 16th, which is, obviously where we have the big tiger shot back in the day. That par 3 is always played hard, especially on the weekend. They put the pin in some brutal spots. So yeah, it's tough, man. It can get to 16 under, it can get to 15, 16 under, but you got to play some damn good golf. I think if you shoot 4 a day and you figure out a plan to shoot 4 a day, you've got a shot.
Yeah, I want to go right back to you, Reid, on this. So for those who don't know, the new FedEx Cup ranking, it has changed a little bit for the first playoff event. It was the top 125 advancing to the first playoff. This year, it's only the top 70. We're just 12 events away from the playoffs. A couple notable names here that are right on the line. Hideki, 61st. Justin Thomas, 71st. Adam Scott, 87th. And Shane Lowry, 100th. So these guys got to start making moves to get into the FedEx Cup. When you were out on tour, Reid, did you guys think about this a lot? Would it affect how you played going into things?
Not really how we played, but...
Or when would you start thinking about it, I should say?
Yeah, you don't really, because, when you go to a tournament, the goal is just to shoot as low as you can, right? You're not going to go to a tournament and be like, I need to finish 41st or better this week and just try to finish 41st. You're still going to try and win the golf tournament. So, but only thing I would say it kind of changes is if, let's say you were thinking about taking a week off or something and you're kind of cutting that close, you would probably go play that tournament wherever it is. Even if you don't like the golf course or where it's at, or what, for whatever reason you weren't going or you needed a week off, then suck it up and go play and extend your career another year. Well, I guess at that point, top 125, get your card back, and 7, you go to the playoffs now, but you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I know Justin Thomas at the end of every year, he shows on Twitter, Instagram, he shows his notes app with his goals. And he's always got his goals in there, win a major, get a hole in one. And it's always make the playoffs, make that FedEx Cup championship top 30 and all that. He's got to be sweating that right now because he has not played well this year. He hasn't really proven himself in the majors, the elevated events as well. He hasn't been playing the kind of golf that we expect out of Justin Thomas. And he's the name out of that list that you mentioned, Zach, that jumps out the most to me because he's the one that should be elevating his game. And just as Reid mentioned, he's going to have to start making some decisions on his schedule as to some events he might have to go play that he wasn't normally going to play, or he was going to take time off. He was going to rest because he needs those points to get himself in the top 70. So he'll be the most interesting one of that list to see what he does for the remaining 12 events of the season.
That being said, though, Stark, there are events still left in the season that some people that might be ahead of him won't get into. It's hard to predict. You have to really dig into numbers, but he's going to get in everything he wants. You still have the U.S. Open. You still have the British Open. You still have, some invites and whatnot. So there's opportunity there, but I completely get what you're saying. You start figuring out oh shit, I better step it up a little bit, else this season might be cut a little short.
That's a great call. He's probably sweating. Another great story, though, Sam Bennett back in the mix. He's going to be playing this event, his first PGA Tour event since, I guess that wasn't a PGA Tour event, but his T16 at the Masters. So that's something to watch out for.
Yeah, and unlike Mr. Block that we just talked about, Sam Bennett's a nice story. It's a great story. Played well at the Masters.
Can't shoot a 59, though.
He doesn't need to. He's great with the media. He's just happy to be there. I'm excited to see him at least get into this event, see what he can do, let him enjoy it, let him play the tournament. We don't need to see every single shot of his, but every once in a while, show us how he's doing.
All right, with that, Stark, let's get into some picks. We don't have Nolan to, we don't even need Nolan. The guy hasn't got a correct pick in 3 weeks. What are we even doing here? But Stark, we'll start with you.
I did. I think I had one last week. I had my Ricky Fowler top 20, I think, hit. So that was my win. I got a few plays, and I'm going to start with a oddball one, but I like it because it's an elevated event. You look at the people that are in it. It's all the big dogs. They're all there. A bunch of them are playing very well. So I'm going to go with a winner of the tournament winning by only one stroke at plus 230. So that is a close finish, something right down to the end where we got to watch it, that 72nd hole again, and a player to win it by only one stroke plus 230. I can't wait to see this leaderboard on Sunday.
So does that hit if it goes to a playoff still?
I do not believe it counts if it goes to a playoff because there is a playoff option on there.
Still like it.
Still like it. The next one, it's like picking a hockey team in regulation, but we don't need to get into that. My next one is Victor Hovland, top 10 at plus 220. Hovland's been playing great. I actually like him to maybe break out and possibly get a win finally in one of these big events, but I'm not ready to go there just yet with all these big names. So get Victor Hovland in the top 10 plus 220. Then I got a guy last week played well, coming off his previous win at that event, is Sam Burns, top 10 at plus 375. I like him to get up there, play well, hopefully putt well, and get himself near there. Another player that played good last week too, Harris English, top 20 at plus 300. So these are some good odds on some players that are playing well, and that's what I like going into these elevated events. There's going to be some big names up there, Thomas, Rory, those guys who just don't show. So I like some of these middle ground guys to get into the mix. And then my winner, I got Xander Schauffele at plus 1,200. He's due for a win, and he's due for a win at a big event. He's been sniffing around too much. So let's go X-Man.
All right, for my picks, I got a little safer this week, but I really love these. No huge dogs except for my winner, so I guess I'll start with that. The winner, I'll go a guy who's won 2 of the last 4 here, Patrick Cantlay, plus 1,000. This course obviously suits his eye. He's dominated here. It's horses for courses, and loving Cantlay this week. The 3 other bets I got, so this one, we mentioned Scottie Scheffler he's basically come in the top 10 every single week for like a year now. Top 10 minus 115. Pretty close to even odds. Stark, you're shaking your head. Do you like it or you don't like it?
I don't know, man. Given the juice on a top 10, but you're right. He's been there every time. I'm not going to be surprised when I see him on the leaderboard Sunday.
I was like, you miss every single putt from outside 6 feet on moving day, and you come third.
I agree. He'll be there.
So obviously, different field, but I'm liking that. I'm also going with Tom Kim, top 30 plus 105. Feel like that one's looking real good. And then, as you guys know, my boy Sahith, got to get him in there every week. Top 30 plus 105 as well. This guy's just been tearing up the place. Reid, what are your thoughts on Sahith? Is he going to break through for a win?
Sahith has every tool it takes to win on the PGA Tour. He's not weak in any area, man. I don't think he's going to win this week, personally, against this kind of field. But I think he'll break out sometime soon, maybe in a smaller event, or sometimes that's what it takes. It takes a smaller event for a guy to know that he can win, and then you start seeing him.
Yeah, we should have asked Mark. Next time we have him on, we're going to ask him about Sahith because those guys have battled it out on several mini tour events, Outback tours during the COVID break.
There was, if I'm not mistaken, I think Sahith Theegala, I don't know what the award is called, actually, but I think he won most valuable player in college one year.
He did, yes. I'm forgetting the name as well, but yeah, best college golfer.
We might as well start making the t-shirts for Zack to wear where the front says Blockhead and the back says Theegala's my guy.
That would be incredible. Imagine I would say if Theegala's in the Canadian Open, I would say even odds probably for a 1-2 finish. But that's just me.
You got to make it so you can reverse it. So you got Block's shirt, face on one side. You can then take your shirt off and flip it around.
Then you really guarantee a good week.
That's right.
It was the Haskins Award Theegala won in 2020.
That's it.
Correct.
That's it.
All right, guys, another week is wrapped up. Last week, the listener questions went great. We had some amazing discussions, so we're running it back again with some more listener cues, and then we're going to close things out with our Bogeyed plays of the week, and there's lots to choose from this week. Let's start off, though, with questions, and our first one comes from Rebecca on Twitter, asking if you had to predict which active golfer finishes with the most majors From this point forward, who would you take?
We're all starting at 0 right now.
Starting at 0.
We're all at 0. Could be you. You can say yourself, Reid, if you want.
Hey, you never know. Go ahead, Stark.
I'm going to go with Jon Rahm. I think that he's just getting into perfect stride. He knows how to play in the majors, knows how to play in all the big events, and he's a guy that really wants those majors. He's all about his legacy. He's got a couple now, and he's looking to add to it. I think he's going to go on a tear for the next 5 years or so. Hopefully he stays healthy, and he's playing in all those events. That's 20 events in the next 5 years. What's stopping him from getting 6, 7 of those?
Wow, okay. Probably a pretty solid pick. Reid?
6 or 7. Wow. If I had to pick one player, if we're all starting to scratch right now, I'm going to take someone who hasn't won a whole lot of majors yet, just because I feel like it's like you're at the grocery store, right? And you keep filling up your shopping cart, and you get to the point where it's like, okay, that's too much. I can't fit any more in there, and you just can't stuff anything else in your cart. I feel like that's that way. I mean, look at Tiger, right? You just couldn't get over that edge. Can't get over that edge. I feel like there's just some times where, maybe Jon Rahm's not kind of in that category, but so someone wins 1 or 2 majors, and they're just not gonna win anymore. It's not gonna happen. But I'm going to go on a flyer here. I'm going to go in a long shot because he is still somewhat young. I'm going Max Homa. I think he's going to win a couple majors.
Wow, that's a very solid pick. I was thinking of Homa too.
Great pick.
So you think he gets 2 or 3? Honestly, that could be what has the most of 2 or 3.
I think he gets 2, maybe 3.
Love it. Actually, Nolan just texted me. He's going to take Tiger Woods for this one.
Yeah.
He probably thinks the Woods has another 10 in him. For me, it was between a few guys. I was thinking Scheffler's the obvious one. If I had to put everything down, you got to go him. But then I was also thinking Hovland. Obviously, everyone's off of him. I mean, he's been up there every single major, top 10 after top 10. But I'm going to go a bit off the board. Someone we've forgotten about in the golf world, Will Zalatoris. If we asked this question a year ago, he might have been everyone's pick. He gets injured. He hasn't been in the spotlight. Can't you guys see Zalatoris just coming back and win a major? Too? I could see him winning 2 majors next year. Would anyone be that surprised?
Not with the way he rolls the rock. No way.
The back surgery scares the hell out of me, but yeah, he can definitely play, and he's not afraid of the spotlight.
Our next question from Mark on Twitter. He asked, which 4 current or past golfers would you put in your dream foursome? Reid, we'll start with you.
Specifically PGA Tour players you're asking?
Let's go PGA Tour players or LPGA or LIV.
And can I pick a time frame?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Natalie Gulbis in the early 2000s, mid-2000s. I'll go with Tiger Woods. I'm just writing these down, so I need one more, huh? Let's go Palmer. I like Palmer. Arnold Palmer. Just talk a little bit of the old days. How was the game back in the day? What kind of balls were you hitting? How'd it feel? The 1 millimeter width irons, all that kind of stuff. I'm gonna go Arnold Palmer.
Having a couple drinks and a couple darts out on the course together.
The caddies back in the day. That's how they used to tell the wind a lot. That's why all of them smoked. That's actually truth.
That's honestly a pretty good idea.
So yeah, I'm going Natalie Gulbis for obvious reasons, Tiger Woods and Arnold Palmer.
Stark, what about you?
Gotta go Tiger Woods number 1. Even if he didn't even want to talk to me, just to watch him hit it while we're playing would be unbelievable. I'm going to go with DJ next. I think he's a great swing. His swing is so beautiful to watch. I'd love to, every hole I'd be like, all right, try to hit the green here in 1. Just crush it. I'd ask him about his father-in-law nonstop. So that would be good, Wayne Gretzky. And then the last guy I'm going to go with is someone I like him. I think he's fun and he seems down to earth and he's cool. I'll go with Max Homa. I think he looks like a great guy, a guy's guy. He's going to have a beer with me out there. We're going to talk shit to each other. We're going to play a match. We're going to have fun. We talk about any sports. He seems real cool, so I'll add him.
Yeah, good call. For me, it's going to be Tiger. Got to get Tiger in there. That's boring, but want to get him in there. Second guy, this one's really going to throw you guys off. old Tom Morris.
Shit.
I am infatuated with this guy. He might be just 1-1 in the draft of who I'd want to play golf with. I also just love the fact that he's old Tom Morris. Like, we don't talk enough about, like, my father doesn't just go by old Zachary Pencer.
Right.
And then the last guy, this is dead serious, Michael Block.
No way.
Because I have so many questions for him. I just want to know if he legitimately is the way he talks about his game.
You're trolling me now, Zach.
No, that was not even a troll. Or another thought, our guy Kevin, working the 1s and 2s, pointed out Tony Romo.
Oh.
Active golfer. Could you play with him? Does that count?
He might be an annoying guy on the course.
Zach, I was so sold you were going to say Kiradech Api-Bonrat.
One of the first articles I ever wrote, golf articles, was about Kiradech Afi-Barnrat. That guy has a special place in my heart. It was about him vaping and his Lambo.
Quick story. We played with him at the AT&T at Pebble. And I vividly remember him. I mean, obviously all throughout the day, but I vividly remember him on 18T, and we're standing there on the scenic 18T, and he has this tank of a vape just blowing clouds out. And I looked at him, I looked over at Mark, and I just couldn't help but just start busting out laughing.
That's absolutely incredible. He's someone like we just got. He's the white whale, Kiradech. The last question from Ryan Brooks 12. He sent a DM asking a simple one: who wins on tour next? Victor Hovland or Ricky Fowler?
I'm going Victor Hovland here. I like him this week to play well. He's been in the mix. A great story for Ricky. I'm cheering for him. I want to see him back in all these big tournaments. I saw he qualified for the British Open, which is awesome too. I think he's close, but I think Hovland's closer, and he's going to win a big one too.
I disagree with you, Stark. I think I'm going to go Fowler. I think Hovland's had too many opportunities. I mean, I'm not saying he won't win, but I think that Fowler's trending, and I don't think Hovland will win this year. Just personally. And so I for that reason, I think I'm going to go Fowler.
Really, as a deciding vote, I'm going to go Hovland. I think Hovland's the easy. I would want to see Ricky win because I think it'll be such a good story. And we've seen now Day win, Rose win, even a guy like Grillo win, where it's been a long time. And you kind of think that they can't do it until they do. And Ricky's been playing some great golf.
Our buddy Ryan Brooks 12 here clearly picked the two golfers with the craziest outfits to go head to head against in this question.
The all orange.
Yeah, vivid orange.
All right. Last week, I said Ian would have the runaway favorite for Bogeyed of the week, and he did. He took Tom Kim rolling around in the mud. It got 67% of the votes, which getting 67% of the votes on any Twitter poll is crazy because it does not matter what you ask. It's going to be 50-50. This past week, though, we had another absurd batch of bogey-worthy plays. So, Ian, as the defending champ, we'll start with you.
Mine isn't one particular moment, but just an overall bogeyed season, let's call it. And that's Harry Higgs. This past week, he shot a 75-77 for second last place at the tournament in Colonial, only beating our boy Michael Block, which isn't something to really hang your hat on. Harry's really fallen from the graces lately. I mean, he was everywhere. Let's think about it. He was playing in majors, and he was being in featured groups, and then he was getting commercials, and he was a guy that was doing every single podcast out there. He gets the Dude Wipes sponsorship on his shirt. He's got the TaylorMade sponsorship. Everyone knows about this guy, right? And then all of a sudden, it's been nothing but miscuts after miscut after miscut. His last 4 events has been miscuts. The 2 that he's made, one was the Punta Cana Championship, and he got a T38 in that. Valspar miscut. His best finish of the year was the Puerto Rican Open T7, which is an alternative event anyway. It's not been a good year for Harry Higgs. I'm worried about him keeping his card. And if he doesn't keep it, what happens to him? Is this a guy, let's be honest, is this a guy that Liv says, hey, let's give him some money because he's a big character and we'd like to see him out here, and he could rev up the crowds, and he could take his shirt off, and he can play the music, he'll drink beers with the fans, whatever it may be. I'm worried that Harry's career is coming to a close soon, because he's just not playing well. So he needs to make some changes, and I'm not sure which way it's going to go. So his career right now is my bogeyed of the week.
Geez, shots fired on Harry Higgs here, Stark. I'm going to go with another Harry, though. Nothing against his career, but Harry Hall's hat this week. That's my bogey to the week. Look, what are we doing? It's an atrocious look. Let's just be honest. Thoughts?
My thought was, because I did think about this. So obviously it's his look. They said there was a story about how it's related to his club that he plays at, but they put a massive Callaway logo right on the front. Like, is that Callaway saying we'll just put a logo on that hat? Or do you think Callaway actually sells that hat?
I think the logo, Reid, you probably have better insight into this.
Yeah, companies tend to just put logos on anything. I mean, look at Tiger's clubs back in the day, dude. Some of those weren't Nike clubs, man. They just had a Nike stamp on them.
That's a classic tennis racket move where Roger Federer was just using a 15-year-old racket but painting it like the new one every season.
It's all marketing, man.
So yeah, Harry Hall's hat, that's just atrocious. Trying to get some fan votes over here. Reid, well, what about you?
Well, from the Monday Qualifier today, it was interesting. I didn't play my best, but
wait, where were you? Give us where you were or where you are.
Greensboro, North Carolina.
Please, Reid, tell us more about your struggles this week.
Plugging in the lips of bunkers and I actually didn't hit it that bad, but somehow the course found a way to say fuck you. But that's golf. I mean, he's got to walk away and go play the next one.
Yeah, there you go. One of these weeks you're gonna get it. It's go all in or nothing at these events.
Right. So anyhow, we're playing with this guy. We get paired up with a threesome and tee off. We teed off on the back nine. Teed off on 10. Long story short, so 10's fine. 11, one of the kids pulls it. It's par 5, pulls it. I mean, dude, it had to have been 60 yards left, which would have been out of bounds. There's white stakes all over there. Hits a tree, comes back in play. 12th hole, our third hole, he pulls one left, hits the trees. It was heading out of bounds, hits the trees, stops down. So we'll fast forward. I think it was like 3 or 4 holes left. And mind you, this guy had sent it out of bounds 5 times, and every time it had come back into play, one of them hitting a golf cart to come back into play. Okay, just keep that in mind. 5 times. We're walking on one of the holes. I want to say it was 7. Walking up to the green, and he's talking about how he just hasn't made any putts today, and he's lipped them out. And I'm like, bud, you had 5 balls that were going out of bounds. The guy shot 68 with 5 balls that were going out of bounds. But he wasn't going to qualify because he was lipping out putts. I said, dude, by the grace of God, you should be shooting 80. So, I mean, that's golf though, right? Like, sometimes you hit it, like you hit some shit shots and it turns out, and you make a few putts and you piece it together and you shoot 68 and you're like, wow, I didn't hit it that great, but I shot 68. And then you have times like today where you hit it good and it's like, what the hell just happened? You know what I mean? So, but yeah, that's my bogey for the week. I couldn't believe it. And the minute he said that he wasn't going to get through because he was lipping out putts, I said, bud, you should be thankful to be anywhere even near that position.
My God, the characters you must get out there is something.
Yeah.
By the way, honorable mention bogey of the week, Stark's headphones.
Yes. Zack, I will say that Mr. Butterbean Merced did reach out to me, and he would like to come on here. So for those listening, Mr. Merced, Mr. Butterbean himself, and he always calls his kid Little Bean or Pinto Bean. So, dude, you got to hear some of these sayings, man. We'll get him on. It's funny.
We will get Butterbean Merced on. That is a guarantee. Assuming he's able to make it, he will be on the show. Well, fellas, another great week in the books. On this week's show, we talked about the Charles Schwab Challenge. Emiliano Grillo got the monkey off his back. Michael Block maybe put the monkey back on. At least that's what Ian likes to think. And Scottie Scheffler continues to churn on. We had a great interview with Mark Baldwin, and we talked about the Memorial, a tournament that always seems good for a tight finish. Finally, we closed it out with some more fan questions and our bogeyed play of the week. As always, thank you guys for listening. I want to thank Reid and Stark. Special thanks again to Mark Baldwin for taking us through his journey of reaching the highest level of golf. Thanks to our guy Kevin, working hard behind the scenes to get us sounding our best, because otherwise we'd be screwed. We're not tech guys. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Bunker Township, and let's have ourselves a week.
That's tough. It's just, that is brutal. Bunker would be an advantage.